everyone, it's Leanne. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing a folded picture window card, and so this is a thank you card that I shared with a coworker who brought me some wonderful raspberries from her garden. So to get started with this card, I'm using the center picture window card set. This is from Fawn, and I also have the add-on set here that has the extra frames and adornments. I'm also going to use the Thanks a Bushel stamp set from Fawn as well as the coordinating dies. And I have this paper from Recollections, as well as this paper here from the Roses cardstock at Recollections. That white is a bit of a cream color. You can see here with a white piece of paper. It's just a little bit of an off-white, but I think it'll be a nice complement with that peach color. I'm going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink for stamping, and I have some Distress ink in Salty Ocean. So let's get started. To begin building the card, I want to cut out the frame or the base first. And so this is part of the center picture window card set. And so this is the main background for the card, the main base. I'm going to use the Darkest Roses cardstock, and I'm going to trim this out and run it through my Sizzix Big Kick machine to pop that die out. Now I also need to do the center picture window part, and so I want that out of the same color of cardstock. And so I will use this die to create that as well. So the die on the left will create the base of the card, the folded part, and the part I have in my hand here is going to create the center picture window on the inside. So I've run those through my Sizzix machine. I'm just going to pop them out, and this will create all the necessary folds and cut lines that I need. Now this piece right here is going to create that center picture window. So I just need to match up the folded edge in the very center of the frame. And so I'll run this through my Sizzix as well, and you can see that this is the negative shape, and here's the positive. So it creates a nice stitched border around that edge. And then this is the back of my card as well. So it'll go together as something like this. And so now I'm going to use the add-on to create the extra pieces that I want to embellish the framing with. So I'm going to use the frames and these little cloud pieces that are really cute, and I just have to pop them out with some white cardstock. So they should look really nice and add a little bit of embellishment to the card. So using that cream colored cardstock, just that off-white, I'm going to create the frame pieces out of this. And so this kind of creates an inset border for the sides of the card and the opening part, the front of the card. So I will cut these out with my Sizzix as well, and then I'm going to come back and pop out some clouds with the extra space that I have of this cardstock. I'm just going to reuse my two-way tape. This is 3M Scotch tape, and it's removable tape, so it's not as sticky, and it doesn't leave sticky goo on my paper surface. So I have these popped out, and so you can kind of see how they'll go on the sides. That's my front piece, the larger one. And these just create nice little borders for each left and right side of the card. Now I want to create the background of my sky, so I'm going to use some mixed media paper, and I want to do some blending, and so I'm going to do some blending using the Distress ink. But first I need to pop out the background. So the background is going to be the same sort of setup as the front of the picture window card. It's the exact same die. So I'm going to use this to pop through my Sizzix machine as well. And so this gives me the perfect size for the background of the picture window. I want to do some embellishments on those side panels, and so I want to create some grass. So I'm going to just pop out the frames using the grass paper as well, and then I'll use another template after this to create the grass edges. So I'll run this through my Sizzix, and I have those panels again. So this matches the white panels that you saw previously. So these guys are the same size. They both have nice stitched borders. And so I'm going to use these metal borders dies, and I want to create sort of a grass hill pop out of each of those templates that I made. So I just want a little bit of grass to sit at the bottom of the panel of each side of the card. I want to leave the top area to write my sentiment on. And so I'm just taping this in the middle, and I'll run that through my Sizzix, and finally those pieces are done, and they'll fit perfect with my card. Now I want to do the same with my front panel, so I'm going to use that same die, same process. I'm going to cut out the white paper and then the green. And now I'm going to make the grass trim. So I just want it a little bit near the bottom, not quite halfway up. And I think that's centered and good and ready to run through my Sizzix machine. So here's a look at that final piece, and it just makes a little bit of a hill out of the grass. And I really like how this creates a layered look. And it's the perfect size because I have that templated frame that I can just keep popping this out with. So now I'm going to work on the background of the inside of the card. I'm going to use that Salty Ocean as I mentioned before. This is in Distress ink. And I'm just going to do this one color. I just want to do a light sky just to give a hint of blue in the background. I don't need too much here. There's going to be enough embellishment in the picture window with the critters that I'm adding, or my little apples. So I just want to do a light blend from the top. I'm putting most of the ink down on my scrap piece of paper. I don't want the sky, again, to be too dark. I want to keep this pretty light and bright. So just very carefully coming in. I'm just lightly rubbing down from the top, and I'm trying to blend it into white. And so I'm just doing a test here to see how dark my clouds look in the blue, and I feel like they're still a little too light compared to the background. So I just want to add a little bit more blue, make it a touch darker, but not too much. So I'm going to keep doing that same process, and I think this is pretty good, and I like that it fades into the white of the paper. So now I'm ready to start stamping my pieces. I do want to get some of the main apple picture stamped out first. I want one to go on the inside of the card as well as the front, so I'm going to stamp out 2 of those. And then I'm going to stamp a few spare apples that I can try to put inside the picture window, as well as embellishments on each of the inside panels and maybe the front page as well, the front part of the card. So this stamp set does come with 2 versions of the apples, a full apple and a bitten apple, which is really cute, and a whole bunch of faces that you can mix and match. And I love this so much because I love the kind of kawaii look of it, and then I can pick my own apple faces. Some are grumpy, some are happy, some are frustrated. They're pretty cute, so I just had a lot of fun mixing and matching them. So I'm just going to stamp all the little faces, and then I will have this ready for Copic coloring. So now I've left the entire process of the Copic coloring in so you can see if you would like to watch that. I did speed it up though because it does take a little bit of time to color in everything. But I did want to show the entire process. And again, I have all of the marker colors listed below in the description if you're curious about any of the blends that I've made or the colors I'm using. And I'll have links for those markers as well if you're interested. So for this process, I colored all the apples the same. And just thinking about the shadows when they're overlapping each other, most of the shadows are coming from the bottom up because the way they're stacked inside the barrel. And then I'm using a little bit of a dark pink to really emphasize the deepest part of those shadows so they don't just look like a flat red, they have a little bit of a cherry color to them. And I use the same colors for all the apples, whether they were in the bucket or just standalone apples on the right. And so getting these guys all colored in, you could do something where you mix and match the color of the apples. There are different colors you could try. You could do some red ones and green ones and yellow ones. And I have done that before, but for this card I wanted to keep them all just that bright red. And so when I was coloring them as well with the Copics, I wanted to make sure that I kept the face area very light so you could see the details and kind of work the shadows from the outside edge of the apple inwards. And that also helps create that kind of curvature look, that 3D cylindrical, I guess, look of the apple. So for the little leaves, I'm going to do a little bit of a yellow-green and just pop those on there, very simple, not too much blending there. Now for the bucket itself, or the barrel, I'm using a little bit of a blue and a little bit of cool grays to create a silver for the band. And then I want the actual wooden planks to have a very warm feeling, and just creating some nice browns with those. Some maybe a little bit on the yellow side as well, some caramel color in there just to help match the leaves. But mostly just creating that look of the wood grain and the wood planks. And so a lot of layering, but I did leave the process in so you can see it all. So now that I have these colored, I'm going to pop them out through my Copics machine as well. So I just want to trim these down so I can run them through separately. And they should pop it pretty quickly. So here's the dies. These are the coordinating dies. And so I'll match those up with each of the apples, and then each of the little barrels of apples too, or bushels of apples. And so I'll tack these down with some Post-it tape, which is not too sticky, just enough to hold that die in place so it doesn't shift as it's going through inside the plates through the Copics machine. And so now these are ready to run through. So when they're done coming through the Copics, they're easy to pop out, super simple. Now I also created these pieces here, these little hillside pieces that will go inside the picture window card as well, and those are also dies included in that package. Now I need to prepare the background. I need to cut those tabs off. So if I was using this templated piece as part of my card, it would stay with those tabs. But because this is the background, I don't need them here, so I'm just going to trim them off. Now there are fold lines where those tabs are, so you know exactly where to trim them. When you run the die through the Sizzix machine, it creates an indent where the fold marks would be. So this is super foolproof to do with this center picture window set. It's really easy, and everything just coordinates really nicely. It all comes out the exact size you need, which is so nice. And so now I'm going to start building the card. I'm going to fold my back piece first. This is the main structure of the card. And so again, it has a score line as well down the center. And I can match those score lines up and get my background right in, snug close into the folded edge of the base of my card. So now I'm going to work with just the right side first. I'm going to tape down the right side, pushing the folded edges in towards each other as much as I can, and just pushing it into place. And then once that's ready, I'll do the left side. And doing the same process, I'll put some two-way tape on it and then just fold the card over, and it'll close nicely. So it has a natural fold. It's all sticking exactly where it needs to. So now I'm going to start building the inside of that picture window. So this is the frame, and so this was cut using the same template as the background, but with the center popped out as well, and we did leave the tabs on so that we can put this down as the front part of the window. So now when I get to this part, I like to try to just tuck in the edge underneath the background layer. I'm not sticking this down, I'm just tucking it in to hold it in place so that I can use this picture window frame as a guide to kind of place my elements in the scene first. So building from the background to the foreground, I find is the easiest way. If you have seen my first video creating a card, I kind of did it the opposite, where I created the frame first and then tried to tuck everything inside the frame. It was a little tricky, so I find this way works best. So these two little pieces here are part of the main kit, and so you can cut those out with the dies, and they make little hillsides that are kind of in the background of your scene. So I just used the same cardstock that I used to create the base of the card, and just keeping that same color, I popped these out with those templates. And so now I just need to layer them in the background, and one is longer than the other, so one sticks out farther. I do want to put my little barrel of apples at the front, so I want to make sure that my hillsides are up high enough to hold other elements outside or above the apples so that the apples won't cover them up. I also have this little piece of plastic. I'm going to do a floating apple, one that looks like it's falling from the sky. So I want to keep room for that element as well. So I'm ready to tack down the little hillsides in the background. I'm going to put some two-way tape on the tabs that they have and just trim it to fit perfect. I have thin two-way tape, and then I find if I cut that in half, it's the perfect size for these little tabs that are in the smaller part of the scene. When I'm lining this up, I want to make sure that my card is at a 90-degree angle and the hillsides are folded at a 90-degree angle, and I put those two together to create a square. And I find that's the easiest way to get the best balance of an opened fold or a closed fold, like right in the middle, that sweet spot, so that when the card's all constructed, it all folds at the same ratio, I guess, which seems to work the best. So I have my little clouds as well, so I'm going to put some two-way tape on them. I want to make sure that when I put these clouds in the sky that they're high enough that they look like they're clouds, but they're not too high that they're being covered by the frame in the foreground. I want to make sure that you can see those. So I just use the frame window, a quick check to make sure that they're okay, what level they need to be at, and then I put them into place. And so again, building that scene from the background up to the foreground is the best you can do. That's probably the easiest, the best advice I could give for creating a card like this. So there's 3 little clouds you get in the kit, and so there are 3 different sizes, a small, medium, large. So I like to put the large on one side and then the small and the medium together on the other. So now I'm ready to put my last bit of hillside in, and I don't need this to be too high, but just a little bit higher than that foreground hill. So once I have that in place, I'm just holding it with my finger and I'll push it down because I've got that two-way tape there to stick it down to the scene. So now I'm ready to do my apples. The set comes with this die here, this T-bar die, and so this creates a fold in any element that you want to put in the foreground. So if you wanted to put something that would sit in the foreground of your picture window and fold so that you could see it on both sides, this is the template that you use. It kind of looks like a throwaway piece when you're breaking up the kit when you first get it, so you have to be careful you don't throw that out. But it is super useful, it creates that fold. So it will match the fold of the picture frame, and so I can set it right up in front and it will sit perfectly together. So I'm going to put that down with some 2A tape as well, and I just want to see how far I need to put the 2A tape, how far it needs to come out to cover and be in behind the barrel of apples. And so I'm going to do one side at a time and just measure it, and then I'll stick both of those 2A tape pieces to my barrel. I could have also stuck them to the picture frame, which might have made more sense at this point, but I did do it this way and it worked as well. So again, I want to stick the right side first. I just seem to find that it works easiest for me if I do the right side and then stick down the left side. So making sure that both of those folds butt up really close to each other, but they can still fold nicely. And then I'm happy with that, I'll push it down into place. So now that I have it all set up, I need to trim off the bottom. So I'm going to bring this to my cutting mat, and using my metal cork back ruler, I'm going to line it up with the bottom of the card, and then using my X-Acto knife, just trim off that little extra bit of the barrel. So now I have this flush to the bottom of the card. So it creates a nice foreground element and adds a lot of layers to the scene, which really helps it look very three-dimensional and just that much more added interest and creativity. So now I'm ready to put my little apple that's floating. So this guy is going to look like he's falling down from the tree, and so I want him to be at the top of the plastic piece, maybe falling on an angle and coming down to the side of the apples, but he'll be in the background. So I'm going to put him on the foreground hillside. I'm just going to mark the edges of the plastic where I want him to go. And then I'm going to use that as my guide to trim down and put him into place. So in that part that I marked in the hillside, I'm going to put some 2A tape, and then I will lay the plastic right over top. And it's about the same width, so it's a perfect fit. So this is the piece that I used to create the plastic, and I'm going to use another piece because I decided that I want to put another apple on the other side. So I'm just going to trim a slice off of that plastic and use that to create the apple for the right side. So the plastic is off my Copic case. I got this with a package of Copics, and I just kept it, and I'm glad I did because now I'll have it to make some picture window cards, and I'll get a lot of pieces of plastic out of that one package. So it's perfect for this. And so now I'm just taking a look at where I want my right side apple to be, and I am going to do the same process. So I'm going to put some 2A tape down at the very top of the plastic. I'm going to have this guy leaning a little bit the other way, and then once I have him attached to the plastic, I'm just going to check where I want him to be as well. I tried putting him on the background hillside, but I felt that he was kind of high up there, so I brought him down to the foreground hillside in that framing, and I'm just going to put him a little bit higher than the apple on the left. So I'm just measuring out again where the edges are. I'm going to measure the bottom as well because I want to trim this to be flush at the bottom of the card. And I'm going to trim that based on that mark line that I made and put down some 2A tape on my guidelines and then put my little apple piece over those guidelines. And so now he should be in the perfect position as well, and everything's looking really good and balanced in the frame. So now I'm ready to put down the rest of the card, start building the frame, and attach the left side to the card to match how the right side's attached. So what you want to do is put all of the pieces down, lay them in the correct order, and then if you fold the card, they should all stick exactly where they need to so that they open perfectly. This is the best trick for creating this card. That's why I always tape the right side first and then come in and do the left side all at once. Now I did forget to tape my frame. I had forgot that I just tucked it in the background. I should have did this at that time as well. So I have to come back and add this after. But I can use the background layer as a guide. So the background with the blue and white is exactly the edge that I need the tabs to line up with, the folded edge of those tabs. So by doing this and using that blue and white background as my guide to put the folded edge and the tab down, when this card is closed, all the edges will be flush and tucked inside the card at exactly the spot that they need to be. And that's because the background is 50% of the width of the folded card on each side. So you can see that I'm tucking it in here, and then I've pulled the tape off that left side tab, and folding the card will make sure it folds perfectly. So I'm just securing that by putting a little pressure on each of those tabs, and my framing is all put together. So now I'm ready to work on the side panels. So I have these white pieces cut out, and I really like these because they add a little bit of extra visual layering and just add some more interest to the card. This is a part of the add-on kit. And so I do have these popped out. I'm going to put these down into place, and then I'm going to start building those panels. So next I'm going to come in and put my little pieces of grass that match up exactly to the width and flush on the bottom edge of those panels. So now I'm going to create the front panel, and it's going to be exactly the same way. I'm going to put some two-way tape on the grass piece first, and then I'm going to line it up to be flush to the bottom edge of my cut out panel. So now I'm just going to try putting my little basket on the front, and I kind of like this guy tucked in to the grass, so it creates a little bit more layering with the grass blades coming over top of the bushel. So I have this in place. I'm just going to sneak a little piece of two-way tape in behind the barrel of apples and then pull the backing off and push it down into place, because I don't want to have to redo the positioning afterwards. So now I'm going to do the sentiment next, and the sentiment fits perfectly across the bottom part. It's perfect fit with that width. So I'm going to pick that up with my acrylic block so it doesn't bend, and then just stamp some memento ink on that and put it into place there. I'm going to add an extra apple that's falling from the sky. This guy looks really cute too, just to balance out that empty space. I'm going to attach this with my two-way tape roller and just center it on the front of the card, and this looks really great. And so I'm really excited with how this is coming together, and I love those panels. That add-on is just an extra bit for this card kit, and I just love how they add those layers. So now I have the left and right open. I can write my sentiment, and I'm really excited with how this is looking. These picture window cards are so much fun to make, and if you can tell, I'm having a lot of fun creating them. Here's a look at the final product, and I'm so excited to share this with my coworker. And it's fun because you have the front and the inside of the card too, so there's lots of surprises here with this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you're notified as I post more videos to my channel. Thank you so much for watching.